Alright guys, so I had a few people asking me how to grease your slip yoke on your F150, and it's a pretty simple process. You don't really need too much. It does make a big difference if your drive shaft has the slip yoke clunk. Um, Mine has kind of gotten to a point where it's not really getting much better, even with grease. The splines are just worn down. Some of the Ford Raptors actually had a service bulletin or a recall on it. There's a nickel plating on the splines, and they tend to wear off over a given number of miles. So Raptors actually had recalls for it, but unfortunately our trucks did not. But I'm going to show you guys how to grease your slip yoke if it needs to be done. But anyways, it's a pretty simple job. All you're going to need really is a 12 millimeter 12 point socket with a 3 inches extension, typical ratchet to go with it. It might also be a good idea to have a torque wrench. You don't really need one. I've done this before without it and it seemed like it was fine. So it's up to you guys on that. It should be torqued when you put the bolts back into around 60 or 70 foot-pounds. Some people say to use blue Loctite. I haven't had any problems without using blue Loctite, and people have enough problems trying to get these bolts out as it is, so it's up to you. I'm not responsible for your truck if you happen to destroy your drivetrain. Also, I'm just using generic red grease, extreme pressure. Any grease really works. Teflon is what Ford recommends. I've tried it. I don't know. They seem like they all last the same amount of time for me. But anyways, I'll get started showing you how to do this. Alright everybody, so as you crawl under your truck, this is the passenger side. You'll take a look at your drive shaft. Happens to be, this is the rear end going into the yoke. Anyways, those are two of the four 12 millimeter bolts that need to come out. I take mine out all the time, so they're not really too big of an issue to get in and out. If yours are really rusted in there, you might want to try heating them up. And then once you do get them out, you're going to have to pry them off. Or once you get them out, you're going to have to pry the drive shaft off of the yoke. It's a pretty simple thing. You can either stick a screwdriver under there or bang on it. If you are going to hit it with a hammer, you're going to want to hit right here. You're not going to want to hit your drive shaft. You can damage it and throw it off balance if you do that. So don't hit your drive shaft. Alright, I'm going to spin these out real quick just because it's hard to film and do that. So I'll let you know how far I get. Okay, so I spun all three of the four bolts out. Sorry, I'm just going to draw a line so I will be able to mark up my drive shaft for when I want to put it back in. Keep it in the same location. That's pretty important so that it'll still be balanced. I'm just going to spin this last bolt out, and then I'm going to go and remove it from the yoke. So just bear with me for a minute here. As you can see, all four came out pretty easily. Another thing, when you feel that your drive shaft is about to drop, put something under it. Right now I have my leg under it so that it doesn't fall to the ground. You don't want to drop it really hard, could throw it off balance like I said. Check your U-joint while you're doing that. Make sure it's good. This U-joint's fine. Alright, so now that you got it out, you literally just pull it towards the back of the truck and it will separate from the transfer case. I'll show you what that looks like. Okay. So, now that that is out, you can see what happened. It separated from the back of the transfer case. It actually puked out a little ATF from the transfer case. I'll pull it out under here, show you what the splines on the slip yoke look like. And my seal on my transfer case, I'll show you a closer shot in a second, is actually leaking, so I gotta get a new seal. So really I should have done this when I did that, but oh well. Alright, grease this thing up. So, got the drive shaft out, pretty simple process, only took a couple minutes. What we have right here are the splines. Sorry, I can try and get a better shot of those. Oh, tough to see. Anyways, there's splines in there. Oh, you can kind of see them like that. You can see the old grease that I put in there worked its way out, so it's not really doing much. I'm just going to wipe these out with a paper towel. Then I'm going to put some new grease on there and slide it back in and see how it feels. I also have heard of the racquetball trick where you cut a piece of a racquetball and stick it down in there. I don't know how I feel about that, but if it comes down to it, you never know, might have to. So, alright, well, I'll clean this up and let you know how it goes. So I put a light coating of grease in the slip yoke, as you can see. Nothing too substantial. You don't want to just fill the thing. The way I put it on all those splines is I just use this little paintbrush, just wiped it on. We'll see if that's enough. You are probably gonna have to play with it and figure out how much you do need or how much you don't need. Looking at it now, I think I want to put a little tiny bit more on because it looks like it gets pushed down deeper into the slip yoke. So I'm gonna just paint a little more on there. It is tough when you put a lot on to get it to go back onto the splines of the transfer case because it forms a seal, and there's a bunch of air pressure inside, so that makes that tough. Sorry about the shaking camera too. Happens to be a whole 30-something degrees. Alright, so that looks pretty good. I'm going to go back and put it back in the truck, and I'll show you how that goes. You gotta line up the splines a little, so it's kind of tough doing it with one person. If you had a person to hold up one end, person to push it onto the rear end, then that'd be good. So, alright, this is the part that sucks. Sorry about my finger. Trying to get this with the splines on it to match up the bolts on the rear end. It's kind of like a shot in the dark kind of game until you get it right. Trial and error. Sorry about all the shaking. This is when a lift kit would be nice. Anyways, alright, here we go. I gotta find which one of these I had marked. Not that one, not that one. Happens to be this one right here. Okay, so the way I'm going to do this is you have to pick up one end, get it onto that splined shaft, and hope it lines up the bolt holes. So I'm going to try this a couple times until I get it right. I'm going to stop filming because it's tough to film. Alright, so I just remembered one of my tricks that'll help you out a lot. After doing this so many times, you kind of figure out... Sorry, that was snow falling from my bed. Once you do this a certain number of times, you figure out what works and what doesn't work. So right now, I have it put in the transfer case. The bolt holes do not currently line up where I would normally take it back out and try and do it again. If you are on flat ground, relatively safe flat ground, and you need to line up your bolt holes, what you can do is you can either have someone push the truck in the right direction, or you can just push the tire with one hand, like I'm doing, until the bolt holes on the axle line up with the ones on your drive shaft, like so. Now, like I said, I'm not responsible if you're on some big hill and you think this is a great idea and you end up having your truck roll over you and kill you. By the way, this should be done on level ground, because even though your truck's in park, this is not going to keep your truck from rolling when you take your drive shaft out, even if your e-brake is on. So I highly recommend being on very level ground where you know your truck will not roll. See, now the bolts go right in, no problem. So that's always a good little strategy that I came up with. It speeds the process up a lot, and it saves the grease in the slip yoke, because what it does is it keeps you from pulling the thing in and out and in and out, and that is what pushes the grease all the way up to the front. So I'm just putting these last two in, and I'll just keep filming. As you can see, it went pretty quick. I'd estimate it takes about, if it's your first time doing it, because everything takes longer on your first time, it's probably going to take you between 45 minutes to an hour. I got it down to where I can do it in 20 minutes or so. It's not a big deal. At one point I am going to have to replace my drive shaft, or at least my slip yoke, just because it is worn. And I also have to work on my rear end because I have a significant amount of backlash, which just annoys the hell out of me. Alright, so these are tight. I'm just going to torque these down, and then you should be all set. It's a good idea. Just check your transfer case level of ATF that's in there. You want to use the Ford Mercron V if you have it. If you don't have it, run out and grab some. But yeah, check that. The way you do it is there's only two little holes. Sorry, I just found a loose wire from my toolbox. There's two holes with plugs in them. The top plug has a 3/8 inch square, so you just put a 3/8 inch ratchet in it and spin it out, and then just top it off if it's empty. So that's it, guys. Hope this is helpful. If not, I'm sorry. Alright, thanks.